now, right now. Right 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 now, right now. Oh, I got a real good feeling.
We try to bring you high-quality educational and informational content every single day. Why do you think the price is having such an anemic time? The news story of the hour. Jump onto the chart. Is this the beginning of a massive financial unraveling? We got to add a little addendum to the show map today. Shall we start here on the daily? Now, we've been looking at the RSI on Bitcoin's daily chart for the last several days. It always has been, but it's been increasing over the last 50 years since the government has been bigger. Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and welcome back to Coffee and Crypto Live. This is your week daily morning show where we bring you the latest in everything Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And in today's episode, we are going to be back finally talking about why Bitcoin is going through such a massive crash. I step away for a few weeks and Bitcoin decides to go and jump off a cliff. Today, we're going to be explaining exactly why Bitcoin has taken this step, this dive down to $86,000. As we speak, Bitcoin is currently trading around $87,000. We're going to be talking why Solana is at 135. We're going to talk about why Cardano is at 65 cents. Why is Ethereum trading at negative $1,572? No, of course, it's not actually trading there, but it kind of feels like it for all of our ETH holders. Why has the market gone through such a massive crash? It's the question on everyone's mind right now when the fundamentals are so just giga bullish. Like, we could not have better fundamentals right now for Bitcoin, right? Not necessarily. Why is Bitcoin going through such a massive crash when the horizon seems to be so clearly bullish? That's the question on the table today. We're going to explain that from a couple of different angles. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the short term because there are quite a few different short-term variables that are leading to this corrective movement. Number two, we're going to talk about this from the longer term, more geopolitical reality so that we can understand exactly why this is happening from a broad picture. Because we can talk about crypto all day, and we do here on the Crypto Jeb YouTube channel. Subscribe if you like more of that. But the thing that we're often forgetting is that we've got to take into account the entire market. We've got to take into account what is going on in the stock market. We've got to take into account what's going on. Somebody said my mic is set to the wrong microphone. Let's go ahead and fix that. We've got to take into account. How about that? That tastes better. Does that sound better? Boom, there we go. We've got to take into account what's going on with the broader market. We've got to take into account what's going on geopolitically. So we're going to look at this from the shorter term angle. We're going to look at this from the longer term, broader angle. And then we're going to talk about what we actually need to be doing here. Because obviously, something that I've discovered over the years that I've been doing YouTube here is that if we understand why the market is doing what it's doing, if we understand what the market is doing what it's doing, if we even understand how the market is operating, but we don't know what to do with that information, then it's just philosophical banter. It doesn't mean anything. So we'll be talking about why Bitcoin is dropping from those two perspectives and what we ought to do about it. If you're ready, strap in. We got a lot to cover. Welcome to the chat, everybody who is here. So glad to be back on Coffee and Crypto Live. Where were you, Jeb? Well, we took about a 10-day vacation or so because we earned it. Man, we've been real busy. 2024 was there was a lot going on, right? We had a baby. We've had a lot of health problems. So we took a vacation to Virginia. It was a lot of fun. And then after that, we said, you know what? I really like Tennessee. My wife said that. And I said, you know what? I really like Tennessee too. And so we decided to go and spend a couple of weeks in Nashville, Tennessee, and specifically in one of the suburbs around Nashville, about 20, 25 miles away. And we're considering possibly moving to the Music City for personal reasons, but also because it's going to be a lot easier to actually build the vision that I have here for the business up there with the larger workforce and with the connections that I can make in radio and some of the people in crypto up there. So something we're considering. Tell me what you think. Have you ever been to Nashville? Do you like it? We loved it, but we're back. We're here in Florida, back in studio, and we're going to be going live at 10 a.m. Eastern every single day. There's a video coming out right after this stream. At 11 a.m., there is going to be a video coming out where I personally will be going into a lot of detail about why Bitcoin crashed as well that you're not going to want to miss, so stay tuned. Kryptoni is in chat, said, let's frickin' go. You're finally back. Thank you very much for your enthusiasm. It's much appreciated. Bugging Kings in chat. Joe Bollier, Rick4962, Miguel Rangel said, hello, Jeb. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. ¿Cómo está? Full bar is in chat. Drian121 in chat said, wow, so long. Alec Louisiana's in chat. Christopher Ryan's in chat. My alts and MicroStrategy kicking my butt. Yep, that's what's going on right now. Why is crypto crashing? Because America's crashing. It's actually kind of the right answer. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Good to see you back. We need some calm in the storm. That's what I'm going to deliver to you today. By the end of the stream, you're going to walk away not ready to sell a kidney to buy the dip, but you're going to walk away being excited because you understand why Bitcoin is crashing, and you're going to understand where Bitcoin is going next. All right, let's do this. Let's start over here with Solana. Poor Solana. Solana was rallied all the way up, was trading at, and had rallied all the way up to nearly $270. It's currently trading at $135. Jeb, what do you do with this? You buy. We just bought some Solana this morning, and I'm very glad we did, because this is not the end for Solana. Solana has a long way to run. If you take a look at the market capitalization here, this is a large drop. In fact, it's nearly a 50% drop, but it is actually also roughly a back test of previous market capitalization all-time high. Market cap for Solana right now currently sitting at $67 billion, all-time high, previous all-time high. Went all the way up to $75 billion, but really we only spent a couple of hours up there. It was mostly around $67 to $70 billion prior all-time high. So Solana is back testing prior all-time high, and if you have a chartist view like I do, you can also see there's a trend line that goes boom, 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 right through there that we'll look at on the actual trading view chart here in a little while. Connects all the way back here. It's a nice, beautiful, greatest trend line, and Solana is back testing it. What do you do with this? Well, I don't know what you do with it, but I know what we did with it. We bought the dip. But Solana is not the only thing that is crashing. Bitcoin is also. We're currently trading at $86,900. Now we're back up to $87,265. But these are some pretty low lows. We dropped down to 87 recently. We're currently seeing a massive sell-off. As we speak, as we watch here, Bitcoin is jumping around like a toddler on a trampoline. It's bouncing around all over the place. And the reason for that is because the order books have been absolutely eviscerated. With this corrective movement, all the buy orders are gone. Anyone who is buying right now is not buying on a limit order that they left there 3 months ago hoping to catch a falling knife. No, the people that are buying right now are the people actually paying attention to the chart, which is obviously a smaller percentage of the overall market than the percentage of people that set a buy order down here. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of people probably set, not probably, I mean definitely, a lot of people set buy orders down at $87,000 just saying, well, if Bitcoin goes down there, then I'll fill it. And you should do that. And that's a great idea. If you truly believe in the asset, then go for it. And that's essentially what people did. But most of those speculative buy orders are now filled, which means that all of the volume in this market as we speak right now is more or less new volume that is actively looking at the market, which means that most of the built-up order walls and buy walls are gone, which is going to lead to major price fluctuations. If you are a scalper, if you are a range trader or anything like that, you're having a freaking blast right now because Bitcoin is going through just huge movements all at once. In just the last couple of hours, we have corrected by $3,000. I'm sorry, not in the last couple of hours. In the last 1 hour, Bitcoin corrects by 3%. You don't get that kind of volatility anywhere. And for you traders out there, they're just getting into trading, don't forget, shorting is just as easy, in theory anyway, as longing. You basically are just longing upside down. You just flip the chart over, just take your laptop, right? You just take your laptop, you turn it over, and now you're shorting, right? And so whatever it is, whether it's up, down, you have the opportunity to make profits here if you're a trader. Now, if you're a longer-term investor, which is what I am, because quite frankly, I got a business to run, I got kids, I got a life, I got all this stuff. I don't trade as much as I used to because I just don't there's no point. We just dump money into the market. That's what I do. I'm an investor at this point. I just invest. And when Bitcoin drops down to a level like this, that's when I get happy and I start buying Bitcoin. We buy Bitcoin every single day, and we have a pile of cash that we love to sit on. And from that pile of cash, then we buy the dip, which is what we did this morning. We bought the dip with a pile of cash because we were prepared for a moment such as this, because we followed the financial sovereignty way. Let's back up. Let's do a total market overview, and let's talk a little bit about why Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market is doing this, backed up by fundamentals and technicals. Boom. Bitcoin is currently trading at $86,900. Again, lots of volatility. We'll talk about more of that volatility later. Ethereum is trading at negative $4,724 today. No, I'm kidding. It's trading at $2,381, which is a big sigh, not of relief, but more of a desperation and mixed with exasperation right now. Ethereum has yet to hit its prior bull market all-time high, and if you watched our Solana video that we uploaded a couple of weeks ago, you probably know why. And the main reason for that is because Ethereum is getting absolutely killed over here in TVL growth. If you look at Ethereum's TVL, it's currently sitting at $58 billion. DeFi Llama doesn't like me anymore. I have some drama with the llama, if you will. This chart never wants to load for me anymore. Is that happening to anyone else? I don't know why, but I know the chart, and I'll tell you. Ethereum's TVL is basically right there at its prior bull market all-time high, and it has doubled from $29 billion TVL in December of 2023. Let's just do this from memory, right? Because I have a photographic memory, which is very helpful for things like this. In December of 2022? Would have been 2022? Let's check here. I know what the chart looks like. We got to make sure. Yes, December of 2022. In December of 2022, Ethereum's TVL was $29 billion. Today, it sits at $58 billion, which is a 2x. Yawn. Solana, on the other hand, and let's see if the Drama Llama will let me see it. It will. There we go. At the end of 2022, which was the bear market bottom, we saw Solana's TVL sitting at $300 million. Right now, on the dip, and it's lost 35-40% of its TVL in the last month and a half. On the dip, we're still up 20x. Massive return. Enormous return on the TVL. Well, Jeb, what do you mean? TVL has nothing to do with price. Not exactly. There is an indirect relationship there because as people are looking for a new investment, they're looking at a risk-on asset class called the cryptocurrency market. If they're going to look at a risk-on asset, they want to look for the risk-on asset that is performing the best. And I'm sorry, but Solana is performing better in every single capacity. Just the day that I shot that video that went out on the channel just about a week and a half ago about Solana, on that day, Solana reached its 1 year anniversary of its last outage. For the first time in history, Solana went over a year without an outage. Jeb, it's a cryptocurrency. It shouldn't be having outages. You're darn right. People don't seem to freaking care, though, because they're still buying it. You see what I mean? This trend line that we talked about earlier comes into play. You can see this trend line from outer space. There was a high right here, several lows right here, and now we're back testing it. Solana's bouncing here. I predict that somewhere between $100 and $135 will be the bottom on Solana, and if you buy here, you're probably going to be glad you did here in 5 years because Solana's growth is most likely going to massively outstrip its inflation. I'm not very happy about its inflation, but I also understand that the 2% a year that you pay for the inflation of the Solana because they mint new Solana to pay the stakers to validate the network leads to a network that has effectively solved the major trilemma that goes on in cryptocurrency between transaction throughput, transaction speed, and decentralization. They've really helped to smoothen out that trilemma with the 2% inflation. It's probably going to lead to more than 2% growth every single year on the network, so it makes sense. So you're probably going to be glad in 5 years if you buy Solana here at this range. We are doing that. I'm going to leave what you do up to you. I am not interested in being your financial advisor, but I do think that there's a lot of potential here. Back to Ethereum. Why is Ethereum not rallying the way that it should? Well, because it seems to be turning into a lame duck. As someone who has held Ethereum for a very long time, I bought Ethereum down here at $100 and $200. I bought it here, and then that happened. Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. As someone who bought Ethereum down here and rode it to up here and then still holds some of it over here, I'm really getting kind of concerned because Ethereum is getting beat at its own game. Solana and honestly Cardano are making major strides. If you look at the growth in the TVL on Cardano, you're seeing the exact same thing as what's going on with Solana. Solana really seems to be coming into its own, becoming a market that is in major competition with ETH. So Ethereum going through its major correction is not surprising. As we talk about the two major reasons why we're going through a big crash right now in cryptocurrency markets, Ethereum is not only suffering from those causes, Ethereum is also suffering from the fact that Solana is outcompeting it and beating it at its own game. Let's not forget that the Rust programming language is widely considered to be a far superior programming language to Ethereum's programming language, which is natively Solidity. And Solana also is natively, or maybe I should say originally, a proof-of-stake network, whereas Ethereum migrated to proof-of-stake and still doesn't seem to be doing it as well as it needs to attract new investment. In either case, when you have somebody come in from Wall Street and they look on the surface and they don't know the history nor do they care, and they see that one network is growing much faster than the other one and one network is a quarter the size, leading to larger possible returns, makes a lot of sense why more people are buying Solana right now than ETH. Do I hate ETH? No. I actually hold quite a lot of ETH. But my position in Solana is increasing faster than my position in Ethereum, and I plan to keep it just that way. XRP is trading at $2.17. USDC is trading at $1. Shocker. Dogecoin is sitting at 20 cents, gone through a pretty large correction, down 20% over the last 7 days. Cardano is sitting at 64 cents. Disclosure, we just bought some Cardano. Very excited about that purchase. I do think it'll do well. Chainlink down 20%. That is a good one to pick up on. Everybody's got something to say about just about every project, but not many people can say crap about Chainlink. Chainlink has validated over $15 trillion of transactions in the history of the cryptocurrency space, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. It does have competitors, but those competitors are miles behind it. I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in them as hedges, but Chainlink for right now is the be-all, end-all of on-chain validation of data. Chainlink brings data off-chain, on-chain in a secure and perfectly verifiable way. It's done a great job ever since its inception, and so when it's down 20%, I see that as a sale, not as a cause for concern. So let's read chat a little bit, and let's talk about some of these reasons why we're having this major correction. Welcome to the stream. If you guys are here, thank you so much for being here. Someone just said in chat, I'm down 30% on total portfolio. Me too. Ha! Me too. Or, well, 20-something, you know. We're all down. That's the way the market goes, right? We are happy about that. Like, we get so caught up in, I gotta, my net worth has to go up. My net worth has to go up. And I'm not against that. And in fact, that is one of the key things that we're trying to do in financial sovereignty is grow our net worth so we have a larger economic muscle to do good in the world with. But we also have to be mature enough to understand that sometimes we got to take a step back, guys. Like, when I first built this company, I built that crap with toothpicks and duct tape. It did not work. I didn't build it right. I did not build it correctly. And so I am rebuilding it now. I'm rebuilding it the correct way, right? We're thinking through all our processes. We just taught this to our son. He watches a show called Rubble and Crew. Has anybody ever seen this? You know, Rubble and Crew? Let's go, Rubble and Crew. You know that show, right? There's this character in Rubble and Crew. His name is Speedmeister. And I've been a Speedmeister at times. We were just having my wife's right here. We were just having this conversation with our son last night on the way back from Nashville. You know, sometimes we act like a Speedmeister. We build things so fast that they fall apart in 5 minutes. And I've done a lot of that in my life. I told him, like, Malachi, this is something I've really struggled with, and I'm working hard not to be this way, is sometimes you build things the wrong way, and what ends up happening is they crumble around you, and you got to take a step back and do it the right way. And so sometimes when Bitcoin is down 30%, sometimes when your total portfolio is down 30%, that is a time for you to take a step back and really ask yourself the question, have I built this thing correctly? Well, what do you mean building a portfolio correctly? Do you mean my coin picks? Yes, but that's not actually the main point. The point is, have you built in your mind the correct mindset to succeed with investment? Or do you have an investment that my portfolio must always go up? Or do you have a belief that says, my portfolio could go down for a year or two, maybe 5? If it's going on down for 5 years, you probably got a problem because typically the market doesn't correct it for that long. But my portfolio could go down 6, 12, 18 months. I'm okay with that. And I'm going to buy some more on the dip because I have done the work to make sure that I am buying assets that I actually believe in, and I got a good reason to believe in them. And if somebody walks up to me and says, why do you own that asset? I can give them a ready answer. The Bible says about our belief in the Lord Jesus Christ, have a ready defense for your belief. If somebody walks up to me and says, Jeb, why are you a Christian? I've got a reason. I've got millions of them, literally. I've got every reason in the book to explain to them why I'm a Christian. If they walk up to me and say, well, Jeb, what about this? I'm going to have an answer for you, or if I don't right now, I will within 24 hours. I'm going to have an answer because I know what I believe and I know why I believe it, and there's a good reason why I believe it. So what we've got to do is when the market's going through a correction like this, we've got to quit being a Speedmeister and saying, I'm just going to buy everything under the sun. No, we got to slow down. We got to realize there is value in doing our research. We got to realize there is value in doing our technical analysis. We got to realize there is value in doing our education and study of the market so that we can have a good, strong, solid belief. Because if you do that, then in these cases where there's a correction going on, you will not see it as a reason to fear. Instead, you will see it as a reason to be excited because an opportunity is right before you to build a portfolio. I love it when the market drops like this. You know why? Because I go into my accounts and I look and I say, look at that. My average cost basis, it's about to go down. I love lowering my ACB. That's a term that you ought to write down. Average cost basis. I love lowering the ACB on my investments because it means when the market does resume the uptrend, which it will, then at that point in time, my return will be even higher than it was because I was able to load up at these lower levels. All right, cool. Let's talk about the number one reason why this is happening, and then the number two reason will help to frame the number one reason, and we'll talk more about this in the video that'll be going out immediately after this stream. The number one reason why this correction is happening in crypto is because the same correction is happening in the stock market. If you look at the SPY, you will notice that ever since the inauguration of President Donald Trump, there has not really been a major rally. We've been more or less trading sideways. And there's a very good reason for this that we will explain in more detail in the second part of why Bitcoin is going through this crash. But for right now, I want to focus on the shorter term reasons and I want to focus on the technicals because that's something that you guys want to see. The number one reason why Bitcoin is crashing this hard is because the stock market is crashing this hard. Over the last 4 trading days, we have seen a 3.3% crash in stocks. That's a 20-point drop on the SPDR S&P 500 ETF Trust, otherwise known as SPY. That 3% drop has led to a large correction in the Bitcoin market because Bitcoin is correlated with the stock market. That also was compounded by the fact that Bitcoin was trading in this diamond pattern, and this diamond pattern was always going to have a major break. This diamond pattern was always going to have some kind of large breakout, and that large breakout finally happened over the last 24 hours. We were sitting here pressured below the 20 daily exponential moving average for pretty much the entirety of February. Not sure where I got November from, but never mind. We were pressured below the 20 daily exponential moving average for pretty much the entirety of February, and we were just dropping right down here into this uptrending level of support, which finally broke. When that broke, everyone who was in a long got annihilated, and some of those major people that got annihilated are a lot of the exchanges. Many of the exchanges are deleveraging right now. They're pulling positions out of their leverage long trades. They're taking longs out because if you didn't know, the exchanges also trade. Did you know that? Is that something that you were aware of? Because that's something that I wasn't always aware of. I knew that now, but at one point I learned that, right? The exchanges also trade. Shocker. They like specialize in trading. So yeah, they trade. A lot of the exchanges have had long positions because of all of the fundamentals. The world looks so bullish right now for Bitcoin on the surface. And it is in the long run. But in the short run, it's going to get harder before it gets easier. And I'm going to tell you why here in this second part. But what's happening right now is a lot of the large institutions that are trading. I'm not talking about those institutions that are investing. I'm not talking about your BlackRocks of the world that are mainly investing. I'm not talking about your MicroStrategies or your El Salvadors. I'm talking specifically about these exchanges and whales that are trading are exiting those positions right now. And they're not necessarily getting liquidated, as we can see over here. They're comparative to the size of drop that we're witnessing, there's not a ton of liquidation going on. Oh, what you have? There's $437 million of liquidations going on. Guys, we have looked at this and seen $2 billion of liquidations before. If you look back here to February 2nd, there was $1 billion of liquidations in one day. If you combine the 48-hour total, there was over $2 billion of liquidations in a 2-day period. That was February the 2nd, and while, yes, Bitcoin was going through a large corrective movement at the time, we're going through a larger corrective movement right now, and there's no liquidations. Why are they not liquidating to the same extent? Because it's not liquidations that are driving this correction, it's deleveraging. This is an intentional act by people that are very wealthy, that have a lot of money to take their money out of their long trades. Are they evil for that? No, they just don't want to lose money, so they're pulling their money out of the buys. They're pulling their money out of these leverage longs, and that obviously, if you pull money out of a leverage long, that equates to a sell, and so they are expecting lower lows. At this point in time, we are in free fall, and something that I've always warned you guys about ever since we got up here is that there's this giant open air right here. No support to be seen as far as the eye can see because it just simply don't exist. If you look on the visible range volume profile, why are they deleveraging? Because the last support before the chasm failed. Are they evil for deleveraging? No, they're smart. And if you're in a leverage long, you ought to follow even if you're not even if you're in a loss right now because you're going to lose all of it. The next major support architecture that we have here is $73,800. For everyone who's been watching this stream, I have warned you for the last 2 months that a $73,800 Bitcoin could happen. Drop a 1 in chat if you remember me saying that at least 5 times. We've talked about this extensively, and the reason for that was because this rally happened so dang quickly that we did not build any visible range volume profile support. If you want to learn technical analysis, one of the most important indicators you will find is the VRVP, because the amount of support is not just based on levels. It's also based on zones. And the amount of support that you have in a zone is based on how much time you spent in that zone. We don't just build support based on levels, although we do. For example, $73,800 is a level. But if you remember back to, like 4th grade mathematics, when you have a line and then you have another line in another direction, then you create a shape. right? And so if we have a flat level, a line right here, what is that? That's the top of a shape. What's the shape? It's this rectangle box of support down here that we built last year. A couple of things here. Number one, everybody was whining, moaning, and complaining about the fact that we were trading sideways for 7 months, but now you're darn glad we did because we're not going to drop down to $30,000. The lowest will probably drop a 65 because we traded sideways for so long and built that market structure. Aren't you so glad that this point of control goes through $67,000, which is potentially where we would end up dropping? Do not expect necessarily for the bottom to be in anytime soon. There's a great chance that we'll drop down to 73. Now, what happens if we don't drop down to 73? What happens if we just drop down here to $80,000 or something and then kind of hover here in midair? That's a really good sign. That's a really, really, really good sign if we don't drop down to 73. If we drop down to 73.8, it's fine. It's literally no big deal. It's no big deal at all. Great buying opportunity. I'm going to be buying another coin. Like $73,000, I would love to see it. I would be acquiring Bitcoin so fast. But if we sit there and we hover at $80,000, if we hover and we bottom out anywhere below basically $85,000, but above $75,000, if we bottom anywhere between 75 and 85, good news, really good news, because there's no technical structure here at all to justify why we should have bounced there. The only reason that you can say we bounced in between 75 or 85 is because people just had enough of it and they were buying the dip. That means that you're probably hitting a bottom because the selling pressure was exhausted before you got to the next support level. Seriously good news if we bounce anywhere above $73,000 if we drop any further than we do right now. So short-term reasons why we're dropping. On the surface, it's because the stock market's dropping. Why is the stock market dropping? The stock market and crypto markets are dropping because of two pieces of news. Number one, Donald Trump announced that he was going to be enacting a reciprocal tariff on every nation around the world and a 25% tariff on steel and different tariffs on Canada and Mexico, right? And so this is a really big deal because tariffs to this degree are something that the United States has not seen in over in over a century. They're happening for a reason. They're happening for what many people that understand this would believe to be a good reason. We'll talk about that in a second. But in the short term, people have been trained by the media to believe tariff equals bad. And to a great degree, that's not incorrect. In the short term, tariffs being placed by the United States on other nations are typically a bad thing for the markets because most of the manufacturing that happens where the end product is sold into America happens overseas. So if you place a tariff on that good, theoretically in the short term, you have to kind of watch out because the prices might go up, right? If you put a 25% tariff on something coming from China, then theoretically they're just going to raise the prices 25% and then wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, you're done. That being said, it's not always that simple because what a lot of times ends up happening is that those companies end up raising prices in the short term while they build a factory in the United States so they can get around the tariff, so that they can lower prices and compete on the economic stage. Because if you raise your prices 25%, all of a sudden you're uncompetitive with American-based manufacturing. And so in 12, 18, 24 months, when they get the factory online in America, employing American workers, then you'll end up having lower prices and be able to compete in the country. In the short term, though, people are concerned about tariffs because it leads to short-term price increase, which is true. That is generally something that we see happen. That FUD has stalled the stock market's growth, and that has led to a correction on the United States, on Bitcoin. It has also, by the way, led to a rally. Let's go over here to Dixie. It also has led to some changes here in the Dixie, right? So there was a large rally going on in the Dixie, and then there's this correction going on in Dixie, which is very helpful for Bitcoin because if the correction is going on Dixie, then that generally is going to be good for Bitcoin. So there is a kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a silver lining here. Dixie's going through this corrective movement. With Dixie going through this corrective movement because people don't know how the dollar is going to fare in this new era of Trumpian isolationism and protectionism, this is theoretically going to be good for Bitcoin because it, in the short term, again, devalues, it reduces the strength of the United States dollar. And so this is something that we can kind of look forward to. The dollar is not performing as well, which will theoretically help the Bitcoin market to perform well. So short term, why is the Bitcoin market crashing? Technically speaking, it's because we broke our last level of support below the abyss. Now we're just going to kind of drop down into Challengers Deep and set a new record for, diving. We also have this news about tariffs coming out. and that's impact on the stock market. And then the last piece of news, of course, is that a couple of days ago, Bybit was hacked to the tune of $1.4 billion. And a lot of people got a bad taste in their mouth from FTX, they're walking away with $10 billion of their value, giving it to every single person under the sun except them. And so when the hack on Bybit occurred, a lot of PTSD reactions, not to diminish the actual PTSD out there, but some people literally do because they lost their whole life savings. These kind of flashbacks go on where people say FTX, 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 Three Arrows Capital, right? And so we go back in our head to 2022 when everything was falling apart. And luckily, that's not really what's happening with Bybit. The cryptocurrency industry had a really amazing reaction to FTX collapsing. Within days, you saw Binance, Bybit, Blowfin, all of them, Coinbase, all of them, establishing proof of reserves to show that they actually do have 100% backing. And that's something that you can actually see over here on CoinMarketCap with Bybit. It's the second largest market. It's kind of tied for second. A bunch of markets bounce around, but it's one of the largest markets after Binance. And you can see their total assets here. They have it published. They have $11.5 billion of assets here to cover their deposits. And so they have, allegedly, this is what they report, and we have no reason to believe that they're lying, that they have a large amount of they have basically 100% coverage, right? And we work with Bybit. There's a Bybit affiliate link in the description box down below. We've used them for a long time. It's a great exchange. And so they have over here, I believe they have somewhere their proof of reserves, right? I don't know where exactly it is on the, I don't remember exactly where it is on here, but they do have it somewhere in here. So they've got this, they've got the proof of reserves, and so they're not going to go down like FTX. This is not going to lead to a bank run kind of situation where Bybit falls apart, but people are scared about that. So in the short term, we've got this idea of tariffs. We've got Trump completely mismanaging the Trump project, the Trump coin. I actually don't think the guy really knows what happened with the meme coin. I think he's a little bit over the hill, a little bit of a geezer, and he doesn't really understand what meme coins are. I don't think that he knew that he was rugging the audience, but whether he did or not, the Trump meme coin was a total mess up. The Melania coin was a total mess up. It's down like 93%. Total misstep. I mean, really, really big misstep. They made a huge mistake there. I'd like to believe they didn't know what they were doing, because Trump in a press conference like 2 or 3 weeks later, somebody said that it'd done billions of dollars. You're like, oh, really? I didn't know. The guy's got thousands of people working for him, so he probably doesn't know what happened. May have. I have no idea. I don't want to. I have no idea. I have no clue. You'd have to ask the guy or try and figure that out somehow, whether he knew what he was doing or not. Regardless, it was not good for the industry. The Trump coin and the Melania coin were not good for the industry. It was not a good look. And it was a distraction from the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So not happy that happened. I'd like to give the benefit of the doubt. I like to give Biden and the left the benefit of the doubt a lot of times. I just try to believe the best in people, and it gets me in trouble sometimes. But regardless, the market didn't like it. So you've got that. You've got the Bybit hack, and you've also got the tariffs dropping the market, and also the technical factors. But I want to talk a little bit about, with the time we have here, I want to talk a little bit about the more macro reason why this is all happening right now. Because we zoomed out a little bit, but we've got to go way further. We've got to zoom out a lot farther. Why are these tariffs happening? Have you ever stopped to ponder to yourself, are these tariffs happening because Trump just thinks that some president from, McKinley from 120 some years ago is the biggest genius in the world? Maybe, but not necessarily. This is something that was always going to happen. These tariffs, these reciprocal tariffs, are part of a movement that the United States has been embarking on over the last 20 years, even the last 30 years, ever since the fall of the Berlin Wall. In 91, the Berlin Wall came down, the Warsaw Pact dissolved, and the Iron Curtain collapsed, and the Soviet Union dissolved. And when that occurred, NATO and most of the United States military's mandate for existence ceased to exist. We went into a world where we had a mono superpower. We had one superpower. Russia had tons of nukes, but that was about it. And we've seen in the last 3 years now with them in Ukraine that they couldn't invade the south side of a tin can if they had $100 billion stashed in there. They made some progress, but with what cost? Hundreds of thousands are dead. I mean, goodness gracious, guys. Like, we've seen some land wars in Europe over history. If you've studied European history, my God, it's like every century someone turns into a dictator and decides to invade the whole freaking continent. Vladimir Putin, it was his turn, and he ate his foot. Like, they made very little progress. They've captured farmland. Big whoop. Like, as far as the suffering, the human suffering, untold. Strategic gain, not much at all. They really have not achieved much. For the price that they paid and how much destruction they brought on their own economy, it really just, there's no point. They've got these ideas of wanting to invade all of NATO. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Invade Poland and all of NATO, it's not going to happen. So, and with that coming into full view, what was already assumed by NATO, what was already assumed especially by people with some kind of brain cell in Washington, is that NATO no longer is really necessary. You were always going to have some president, left or right, it would have been the left if this had happened 15 years later, wanting to pull out of NATO. You would have had some president, left or right, trying to distance ourselves from protecting European interests. Because what's the freaking point? Who's the bad guy now? We've got this massive military pact that's unnecessary because the enemy that it was designed to defeat is failing as a state. They can't invade crap. So what are you scared of anymore? It's like walking around in full-on body armor in the safest city in the world. What's the point? The bad guy's going to shank you with a rubber knife. It's not scary. I mean, it's like a toddler walking up to you and poking you with a plastic fork. Oh, I'm so scary. Right? Now, again, I'm not trying to downplay the suffering that Ukraine's gone through because they've gone through a lot, but my point is that they don't seem to be capable of conquering much at all. Who remembers the 50-mile-long train of stuff? They got stuck there, ran out of fuel, and got bombed into oblivion by the Ukrainian Air Force in the first couple days of the war. It's miserable. They're terrible. It's not a very successful military. And so the point is that NATO and the United States do not have the same necessity to have these massive militaries as they used to. And that's a big problem for Bitcoin. That's a big problem for the world in the short term. And here's why. With the post-war era, and I'm so glad I spent the last 15 years just loving history and studying this because this helps frame this conversation right here. What happened in the post-war Reconstructionist era is the United States said never again. Nuh-uh. Never again. And so the United States, along with Britain and France, set out to create NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, with Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all. And NATO grew and defeated the Soviet Union through basically cultural warfare. Capitalism is a better economic model than communism, and so people would defect, and eventually the Iron Curtain fell. With that, we also set up alliances with Japan. We basically walked in and said, Japan, if you want to continue to survive as a modern nation, you are going to do exactly what we say. And so we basically walked in and said, you are now our best friend. And if you don't like it, you can die. That's essentially what happened in the post-war era in Japan. So in a sense, we set up Europe and we set up Japan as a proxy state to box in the Soviet Union because we defeated Nazi Germany, but the Soviet Union's still a problem. So we boxed them in on both sides with Japan and with NATO. And so to do that, to have military influence in Japan and in NATO, you have to have a very strong navy because both of them are across thousands of miles of ocean. So the United States built the most powerful navy in the history of mankind. And with that navy, they started making contracts and deals with nations all around the world. You side with us in the Cold War, and we will provide for you economic safety. We will make sure that there's no piracy. We will make sure that no states step in and stop you from trading with anyone you please. You've got free passage anywhere in the world. If you are Indonesia, you can trade with Denmark all you want. We, the United States, will guarantee that ship's safety using our enormous navy that ain't got nothing else to do because there's not an active war going on because of nuclear mutually assured destruction. And so we patrol the world's ocean, and from there, globalization was created. Globalization happened because every single nation on the world, thanks to the good graces of the United States, trying to win the Cold War against the Soviet Union, suffocating them of allies, buying allegiances all over the world with our military might and with our money, we created a globalized society. And why? Well, if you can understand, globalization happened because we were buying alliances to box in the Soviet Union, which as of 33 years ago, no longer exists. So if the reason that globalization was created no longer exists, then why do we have globalization? If the reason that we patrol the world's oceans and guarantee a global economic prosperity, knowing full well that a lot of American manufacturing is going to go overseas, but it was worth it to defeat the Soviet Union, but now we're just losing our manufacturing to overseas when the Soviet Union no longer exists, then it's not a good deal for us anymore. So for the last 20 years, started under Bush, continued under Obama, continued under Trump's first term, continued under Biden, and now continuing under Trump's second term, under left-wing and right-wing leadership. Globalization has been being pulled back. You see this in military funding. The Navy is mostly focusing on new supercarriers. They're not focusing on the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. They're stopping production of the little destroyers that are patrolling the world seas. We are ending our influence all over the world. The culture in the United States has gone from one of we've got to defeat the Soviet Union to why are we fixing everybody else's problems? We got problems back home, which you got to kind of understand where people are coming from. For the last 50, 60, 70 years, the working middle class has been annihilated in the United States. So why does all this have anything to do with cryptocurrency? Well, because it starts to explain why Trump put these tariffs on everybody. For the entirety of the Soviet of the Cold War, we allowed other nations to put a tariff on us and not tariff them because we were buying their allegiance. You see how it's all playing into each other. You see how it's all connecting. All the dots are connecting now. We allowed them to tariff us without tariffing them because it was our way of buying them. Hey, you can sell your goods to us for free. We won't charge anything. And you know why we won't charge anything? Because we're buying your alliance. No, they can't. No, Soviet Union cannot build a base there. They cannot build an airport there or an airfield there because you're our ally because we bought your allegiance economically. It was economic warfare. That's how we won the Soviet Union. It was not with boots on the ground. It was with economic warfare, and it was through globalization. There was a point to it at one point. But now we live in a world where our end of the bargain no longer exists. We're not tariffing you, so you can sell us cheap goods and you can get all the manufacturing and we can lose our jobs. And for what? Why? Left wing, right wing, behind closed doors, when the politics aren't in it and they're just thinking rationally, which happens every once in a while on Capitol Hill, believe it or not, they start saying, what's the flipping point of this? We're getting charged and we're losing our jobs. It's a losing game for the United States. And so the United States has had a major cultural movement for the last 40 years to say, why don't we put America first? Trump is not the cause of this cultural movement. He is a symptom of an underlying movement that's been going on since he was in diapers, and that man is old as all get out. The Soviet Union collapsed. Globalization is no longer necessary for the defeat of the Soviet Union because Russia's a joke now. And over the last 3 years, we see that very clearly. The boogeyman that was Putin and that was Russia is no longer the boogeyman. It's evil, and what's going on, I hate seeing all the carnage going on in Ukraine, but as far as from the geopolitical landscape of, oh my gosh, they're going to conquer Europe. Yeah, right. NATO or not, that's not happening. It's just not going to. So globalization is coming to an end. With globalization coming to an end, how does that happen? Well, you start getting reciprocal tariffs. If you had have had a Democrat in office, probably not this term because they'd like to play all hunky-dory and kind, but eventually they would have realized too, we don't have a choice but to do this. If Trump hadn't done this, someone else would have done it. If we had two Democrat terms, 2024 and 2028, both Democrat terms, in 2028, you probably see the Democrats doing exactly what Trump's doing right now. Don't forget, the guy was a Democrat until a decade ago because they kicked him out of the party because they didn't like him. The guy was a Democrat for most of his life. Let's not forget that, right? This is how Democrats were acting 20, 30 years ago. So this was always going to happen, and what it means is this. Here's exactly what this means. This is why all of this history, which I know has been interesting, but let's actually apply it because with no application, we have no purpose. The application of this is that these tariffs were always going to happen, and it also means that globalization is coming to an end this decade. Jeb, this decade's already half over. I know. Globalization, as we know it, ceases to exist within the next 5 years. It is gone. It is done. And that's going to hurt. Because the United States is used to buying cheap crap from everybody else and stiffing the American labor market. But that's changing because in the long run, it's not very good for Americans. And we have leadership right now that, whether you agree with them or not, seem to actually care about putting America first. I don't know if he does or not. It seems like it. It's what it seems like, right? It's what they're saying anyway. And there are a lot of people that are voting for politicians that are putting America first. And so with that in mind, when you convert from a standard that is not working to a standard that is working, it costs something. Let's give an example. If you convert from gold to Bitcoin, it costs you something. If you're Peter Schiff, it costs you your pride. If you're any other person, it costs you some transaction fees, right? It costs you having to learn how Bitcoin works, right? If you convert from one language to another, it costs you something. You have to learn how to speak that language. And if you convert from a globalized society to a deglobalized society, it costs you something. What does it cost you? It costs you these really cheap goods that American consumers have been so used to. But don't forget the end result of tariffs. The end result of tariffs, since the United States is the largest market in the world, with 25% of global GDP occurring within our borders, these companies are not just going to eat the 25% tariff or whatever. Either one, their nations are going to lower the tariffs, Or two, those companies are going to build manufacturing in America specifically to distribute to America. This is something that Toyota Motor Manufacturing has seen coming for decades. This is why any Toyota you see on the road in the United States was built in the United States. It was built in the United States. The parts were built in the United States. The pretty much everything except the design came from the United States. Pretty much the only thing that comes from Japan is the leadership and the designs and the actual organization and operation and the higher management of the company. Pretty much all the manufacturing happens in the States because they saw this coming 25 years ago when they started moving into the United States. They saw that the United States was getting stiffed and eventually someone was going to come along and they're going to put an end to it. So they jumped the gun, and that's why Toyota, after Tesla, is the largest car company in the world. That's why we drive a Toyota. And everybody else is going to go down the same track. So in the next 5 years, you're going to see a few things happen, and I'll tell you about how they're going to impact Bitcoin. Number one, globalization, as we know it, comes to an end. You're going to start seeing a lot more stuff made in America. You're going to start seeing a lot less stuff made in China because it's just not freaking worth it. The cost of labor in China has quintupled. You can't pay somebody a kernel of rice an hour anymore in China. They actually want decent wages. Thankfully, I'm glad they do, right? It honestly makes you feel really bad when you buy something. You're like, it's made in China. It's $1.95. The guy making it probably made $1.95 last week, right? It makes you feel kind of bad, right? Luckily, that's coming to an end. The cost of labor in China is going up, and these tariffs are going up, which is going to drive most of the manufacturing back stateside. So, number one, you're going to see a lot of manufacturing coming to the United States. You're going to see a lot of globalization coming to an end. Number two, you're going to start seeing some difficulty. You're going to see some you're going to see prices go up to some degree. These tariffs will likely lead to some price increase over the next 12 to 18 months. And you're also going to see a third thing, and that is you're going to see a bit of a hit to the United States stock market. Over the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to see a little bit of headwind with the U.S. stocks as a result of these tariffs. And if stocks are going through hard times, it also means that Bitcoin will too, because Bitcoin is a risk-on market. So here's why all of this happened. Let's go back and just kind of run through it. In the 1930s, a crazy guy decided he wanted to kill all the Jews. He started Nazi Germany, and then thank God he was deposed. After that, the Soviet Union was not deposed, and it was run by a lunatic named Joseph Stalin. The United States realized we got to box him in. So what we did is we bought the allegiance of all the NATO countries, and we forced the allegiance of Japan. We spent 45 years fighting economically the Soviet Union through cultural and economic warfare, in which we bought the allegiance of everybody around them geographically, instituting what we call globalization to defeat the Soviet Union. In 91, 92, that worked. Soviet Union dissolves. All of a sudden, the reason for globalization, the reason for NATO, the reason for our massive military and navy disappeared. Fast forward 30 years, Russia invades Ukraine, completely utterly fails to capture Kiev at all in the way that they said they were going to. 3 years later, they still have made not great territorial gains, which further proved the idea that had been talked about since 91, that the Soviet Union, which is now Russia, has no capability at all of conquering Europe. They want to do it, but they can't do it. It's like the tiny little chihuahua who wants to eat your head off, but they don't have the ability to do so. And because that happened, in the last 3 years, the culture has gone even more so to the direction of, why are we financing everybody else to protect them from Russia if Russia's not a threat anyway? Why don't we put America first? You see Trump get elected because of this cultural movement to put America first. We don't need to fight the Soviet Union anymore. We beat them. It's over. It's done with. So you move in the next 5 years to globalization coming to an end. With globalization coming to an end, that is in the long run probably going to be very good for America because it's going to bring a lot of jobs stateside. Short term, it's going to make prices go up, which could lead to inflation. Two things on that. Number one, the inflation will lead to a drop on U.S. stocks. But number two, inflation is also good for Bitcoin because Bitcoin loves to thrive off of high inflation. In the short term, stocks going down, bad for Bitcoin because Bitcoin is a risk-on market which follows the growth or the decline of U.S. stocks. But you can see the dollar going down, which is an early warning sign that inflation is coming as a result of these tariffs. But in 5 years, you're going to be on a new standard, which is America First, kind of protectionism idea. It's extremely popular. If you don't believe in that, you're not going to get elected here in the next presidential election. And so that's where we're going. Globalization is coming to an end. That's why. That's how it impacts Bitcoin. What does it matter to you? What it matters to you is that Bitcoin solves a lot of the problems that the world is facing right now. Government is a big part of the reason why all this is happening. Either corrupt government in the Soviet Union or corrupt government in the United States. It's a big part of the reason why all this is happening. Governments are too powerful. If you'll notice, it was government that started all of the world wars. It was some dude, took over the government, turned it corrupt, started a bunch of crap. And so we see that government is the issue in most of these instances. Whether we think they're the good guys or the bad guys, generally government is some of the issue. So Bitcoin strips power from the government, puts in the hands of the people, which is what our country was founded on in the beginning. It taps into the very essence of what it means to be an American. And so Bitcoin is the future. In the short term, Bitcoin could fall through the floor because people do not understand the longer term political realities that I just explained to you. They just see that tariffs bad because they raise prices, and that's all they see because the fog of war is over their eyes. They don't understand. And so it is possible that the stock market drops. It is also possible that the the Bitcoin market, drops down to $73,800. If it does, I'm going to be buying a boatload of Bitcoin. What are you going to be doing? Really appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Love you guys so much. Let's go ahead and read a little bit of chat, and then we're going to wrap it out. Let's see. We still have China to worry about. Our military isn't shrinking. China is at an inflection point. Either they invade Taiwan by the end of the decade, or they are never going to at all. They are going through the most significant economic, geopolitical, and most importantly, demographic upheaval that has ever been seen before in the history of mankind. Their days are numbered. They will not be a superpower for as long as the Soviet Union was. Russia proved that they are not that powerful in this war, Crypto Surge said. Yeah, and so they proved even further that the United States does not need to finance globalism to keep Russia in a box. All right, I appreciate all of you guys tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed today's stream. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Can't wait to bring you guys some more content. New video coming up in about 10 minutes, actually, so stay tuned for that. If you have not already, make sure to go check out Blowfin. Massive competition going on over there. $5.6 million prize pool. You can go sign up with our link in the description box down below. There is currently a $240,000 prize pool available because of the $3 billion of trading volume, and you can be one of the people that get access to some of those rewards. There are so many people right now getting over $1,000 in rewards, and it's likely that that's going to increase more. We're probably going to hit the $400,000, maybe even the $800,000 prize pool unlock. So make sure to go and sign up for Blowfin with the link in the description box down below. Join the Ace of Trades competition. Compete for this pool of hundreds of thousands of people. Compete in this trading competition with hundreds of thousands of people and get access to a massive prize pool of USDT. Really appreciate all of you guys for checking out Blowfin. Also, make sure to check out the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy and our very own Financial Sovereignty Academy with the links in the description box down below. In CT2A, we're going to teach you everything you need to know about technical analysis. In the Financial Sovereignty Academy, we're going to teach you everything you need to know about money and how to manage it so you can build a larger net worth here in the cryptocurrency space or wherever you go in life. Also, make sure to check out NordVPN if you haven't. NordVPN is one of the first places that you should start in cybersecurity. NordVPN is going to keep you safe by keeping you invisible as you browse online. They've been a long-term partner of our channel, and we love NordVPN because they help keep us safe, private, and secure while we browse online. So make sure to check out NordVPN by going to nordvpn.com/Jeb because there is currently a sale going on over there. This is their exclusive birthday deal. Big savings plus 4 months extra. You can get the deal here. You can get 28 months for $93. That's a great deal. It's an amazing deal for cybersecurity. A small price to pay to protect your portfolio, your assets, your bank account information, and everything else under the sun. So make sure to sign up for NordVPN with the link in the description box down below as well. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all for being here. Let's read a little bit of chat before we wrap it out. As a CT2A member, I cannot stress enough on how investing in my knowledge helped me make so many better decisions. I would highly recommend others to consider CT2A, invest in your education. Absolutely. Really appreciate it, Shadrach Frost. That is so true. Jeb is to think this exchange manipulation to lower the price for Bybit to pay them back and buy in lower. Maybe. I don't know if Bybit is big enough to do this kind of manipulation. Crypto Surge said, Jeb, nice to have you back. Nice to be back. That has to be one of the best rants you've ever exhibited. Thank you, Jess Lewis. Appreciate that. Or Jesse Lewis, I'm sorry. Appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. Make sure to follow us on Twitter or on X. You can find the link down below. _coffee and crypto _ Yeah. Hope you guys have enjoyed today's stream. We're over time, so we're going to wrap it out. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. And before I go, I do just first want to thank each and every single last one of you for watching, as always, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.